Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and I am back after a lengthy vacation. After we completed the House of Bloodstein Mentralysis, I thought I would take a week or two off, then do some more narrating, because I love to listen to myself talk. Well, one thing led to another. We had the holidays. I've been on a health kick. I've lost about 40 pounds, yay me. Doing lots of working out, don't have as much spare time to sit here and read these stories, and then, you kind of get out of the habit, and a couple people are like, hey, when's the next narration? I'm like, well, I don't know, it's not like I'm making any money on these are all non-monetized, commercial free, as always, and also couldn't quite figure out what I would want to narrate next. I've got 14 books out. I don't want to put them all out. Gotta have something that people might want to actually buy. God forbid. I was like, well, should I do the Belmont saga? With Paymaster Stenstrom, his beginnings and so forth. Should I do more Shadow Tech Goddess books? Should I do the Temple Omnibus? I'm like, well, that's my masterpiece. I'm going to hold off on the Temple Omnibus for now. And then I thought, well, I've already done Cat, which is the 6th turn of the Shadow Tech Goddess. Why not do the book that spawned that book, the Shadow Tech Goddess itself? So, alright, yeah, we'll do the Shadow Tech Goddess. This one was published in 2014, but it was written in pieces well before that. I think I started writing it like right after book 1. I think probably around 2010, maybe even 2009. I always had the concept of the Shadow Tech Goddess in my head, but then I would get a little bit of it down. I'm like, well, I got to do this other project first. So then I'll push the Shadow Tech Goddess back. And then when the time came, and more projects came up, I'm like, well, we'll keep pushing the Shadow Tech Goddess back. Keep pushing her back. Even though she was always in my head and I'd get a little bit of her done, she always kept falling to the rear. And then I'm like, okay, finally, after we completed the Temple Trilogy and the Belmont Saga, I'm like, okay, let's continue with Paymaster Stenstrom and let's get the Shadow Tech Goddess book out. This one was my attempt to go kind of in a different direction and introduce concepts and ideas that I'd had floating around in my head but really couldn't find a good home for. And then like, okay, the craziness of this book, the Shadow Tech Goddess, would be a welcome area for these weird ideas. We introduced the topic of extraplanar entities, and whatever those are, we'll get into that as the story progresses. I also, with this book, I think it's my favorite. Once we actually finished it, this one has my favorite cover by the amazing Carol Phillips. I think it really flowed well. I like the drama of the cover, what's going on. I like the color palette and lots of purples and mauves, which is kind of a departure for Carol. She's more of a blue and red sort of person. Really like how it came out, and I really like how this story came out. And then there's a lot of books that follow this one that are related to this book. I've already mentioned Cat, the 6th turn of the Shadow Tech Goddess is one. I've already read that one. There's also Stenabel. There's also 2 more that I'm working on. I haven't finished yet. I'm working on it. Get to those. But those are all based off of this book, off of the concepts and the events that take place in this book. 2 parts plus a prologue, and we'll get into all the strangeness as we go along. I think it's a very readable book, very lots of action as always, lots of interesting ideas and things happen. I don't think this time I'm gonna do the little word balloons to designate who's speaking as I've done in past ones, because that just takes a long time to edit. That's a lot of work. A lot of YouTubers just slap together a video and don't edit it at all, and out it goes, and then they make tons of money. Me, not making a dime. Not that I'm bitter or anything. No, I just spend a ton of effort on each one of these videos. And I do it because I love it, so why not? But now I'm going to save myself a lot of time. No more word balloons unless I get a lot of pushback. If people start smashing that dislike button. Go ahead, smash the dislike button. I dare you. So we begin this tale with a brief prologue that's in 3 parts. They're long enough that I probably can't do them all at once. So we'll begin the Shadow Tech Goddess Prologue, Part 1, The One That Lost Everything. And if you're not familiar with Paymaster Stenstrom and the characters that were introduced in the Belmont Saga, at the end I'll kind of go over everything that happens and who shows up and so forth. So let's begin, shall we? The Prologue of the Shadow Tech Goddess, Part 1, The One That Lost Everything. Mixed into Paymaster Stenstrom's usual pile of daunting correspondence was a square letter with no return address. To Lord Stenstrom, Commander, MFV Seeker, was printed out in careful, feminine script. He often got letters from Gwendolyn when she was away on business, which happened from time to time, from his old friend, Lady Alatrix of Zama, soon to be Countess Alatrix of Hopkins, he was elated to hear, from crewman Callie, who'd left the old frigate she'd served on for years and was now working on the bridge of the sprint ship Speedwell, a few words from his father, Captain Stenstrom the Older, who had helped pave the way for that promotion, and from Christiana of Planetfall. All of them good friends. All of them except for Gwendolyn, paths not taken. He could have, if he thought about it, fallen in love with any of them. The unmarked letter sitting in front of him had a grim feel to it, like bad news. He opened the letter, dreaded the plunge he was about to take. It read, "Belle, please come to your main conference room. I am waiting for you." And that was all. Stenstrom wondered if it was a joke from Tara, perhaps. She had a relentless, Baz-like sense of humor that sometimes escaped him. Didn't seem like a joke, though. The letter carried a strong feeling of command, as if not going would be a bad mistake. He put on his HRN coat and stuck his 2 nths into his sash. He exited his office and went down to Deck 3. The conference room was just a short walk from the lift. Light streamed out from under the door. Somebody was waiting for him. Exiting her quarters, Tara ambushed him as soon as he walked out of the lift. "What's going on, Belle?" she asked, pulling on her marine coat. "There's somebody in the conference room." "So? It's probably Gwen again, wanting to get naked with you." "What? Please. Everybody knows." Stenstrom blushed. "I have an odd feeling about who's inside." "Oh, come on then." She looked like a strawberry in her red marine uniform. They opened the door and entered. Sitting at the far end of the vast table, her back to him, was a woman dressed in gray. "Gods!" he cried. He immediately drew his ints, and Tara skinned her SK. The woman in gray, it had to be Lady Vendra of Cone, a long missing enemy and fugitive, come to settle their score at last. "Put your hands up where I can see them." He cocked the hammers of his weapons. "And if you start to waft away your cloak, I'm going to fire." The figure put her hands up in a slow, deliberate manner. She turned. It wasn't Lady Vendra. Golden hair and pale skin peeked out from under her broad-brimmed hat. Blue eyes and sculpted cheekbones. Lily, his former love. Lillian of Gamboa. Who wasn't Lillian of Gamboa? She was a sand golem, a Nargle construct created by the sisters to guide him in the direction they wished him to go. Lily was an arcane monster who once slew over 100 soul devourers. A woman of sand, perfect in every way. A woman of sand he had once loved dearly. He glanced at Tara. "Please go away." Tara cocked her SK. "Like hell!" Lily spoke in a slow, condescending way. Belle, tell your little friend to go away, or I'll have to do it for you. Stenstrom glanced at Tara. It's all right. Wait for me outside. But Belle! It's all right, Tara. Go on. I'll be right here. Slowly, Tara holstered her SK. Better not try anything, she said, and backed out of the room. Lily raised her eyebrows a little. He eased into a chair at the opposite end of the table, still pointing his ince at her. They stared at each other for a long time, Lily's blue eyes sparkling. Do you like gray, Belle? How does it look on me? She said at last. How did you get aboard? How? I do get around, Belle. I can fly. I can drift. I can be thousands of feet tall. I can plant my feet and be in orbit at the same time. The airlessness of space troubles me not in the least. I can sneak aboard a starship through the smallest of imperfections, as in this case. He carefully considered his response. Where is Vendra, Lady of Cone? Lily didn't hesitate. She's dead. I killed her. I've been a busy lady. She was simply the latest to discover how dangerous it is to try to control me, to deny me what's mine. She's in her grave, though you'll find no tombstone. I didn't bother to memorialize her resting place. You may thank me if you wish, or not. It's your choice. Stenstrom struggled with his thoughts. He felt his heart stir a little, looking for old feelings. The sisters had wrenched his love for her from him. Not a trace of it was left. At opposite ends of the table, they sat silent for a minute or two. She stirred in her seat at last. A little gold locket gleamed at her neck. I believe we needn't be shy here, Belle, Lily said. I think, for the first time, we both know what we are. What do you want, Lily? Isn't it obvious? I want you. I was informed by the sisters that you are not a real person, that you're a construct, a nargle built to their specifications. The sisters, a wave of hatred crossed her perfect face at the name. Yes, the sisters created me. They cast their spells and gathered their materials and kept me in a cage in Vithland. They thought strong enough to hold me. Best laid plans, I suppose. I grew beyond what the sisters intended. I have cast aside and rejected all that they tried to build into me, except for one thing. I love you, Belle. He stared at her. Do you feel love? Of course I feel love. I feel love, hate, happiness, sadness, bitterness, anger, loneliness, spitefulness. I feel the whole range, good and bad. Wouldn't be here if I didn't. The late Lady Vendra of Cone, I have her to thank for some of the other things I feel. My ambition, my determination. She gave me those things in a packet of black sand and some tainted rhubarb. I'm the sister's man, Lily. I cannot be harmed. She smiled. Maybe, maybe not. But it's quite irrelevant. I would never try to harm you. I love you. Your friends and your current puppy dog, however, they enjoy no such protection. I'm no killer, but I do kill when I have to, as a few unfortunate individuals have discovered, and nothing survives should I get to killing. Perhaps I would have killed your puppy dog had she entered right now. Jealousy is a particularly strong emotion I feel. I killed your knife, and I killed the lady in gray. Knife? You killed Knife? Yes, I did. Yet another slave of the sisters. I didn't plan on it. I was going to kidnap her, but she hurt me and I got angry. So I killed her and stripped her bones. She is scattered to the winds. Lily sat there and seemed ashamed for her revelations. She studied him, maybe hoping to read his emotions, hoping to discover something, anything, of what they once had together. You really have no feelings left for me, do you? I don't see what... She slammed her fist against the table. Answer the question, Belle. Stenstrom didn't know what to say. Though he felt nothing for her any longer, he still had his memories. Their contentious first meeting, the lunches they shared, the untried avenues of carnal delight she taught him, the long conversations and the piles of correspondence. Lily ate all that food, but did she taste it? Does she have a stomach? She made love to him, but had she felt it? Who had written him those letters he'd loved to read? Was it Lily, or was it some anonymous scribe in a sisterhood stronghold? It was too much to ponder. There's no hope for us, Lily. I've moved on. She breathed in deeply and looked at her hands. Have you any illusions I couldn't kill every living thing aboard this ship at my whim? I think, should you attempt to do that, I would have to stop you. Shoot me with your guns, punch me with your fists. Do you think it would make any difference? I am free. I am fully realized. That 5-year condition I was forced to recite was words the sisters put in my mouth. You just threatened the lives of my crew and my friends. Did the sisters put those words into your mouth too? She flushed. I didn't come here to threaten you or to harm anyone. I'm sorry. I regret saying that. Still, I'm ready for you, Belle. What am I supposed to do? What lengths am I to go? Again, I've moved on. I love Gwendolyn. Something dark crossed Lily's face. Another of your puppy dogs, Belle. Do you know how I ached to kill that girl of yours when you were in school? In that cage the sisters kept me in, I dreamed of killing her. I'm not perfect. Whose arms do you prefer around you, Belle? Can you take that woman you claim to love and embrace her? Truly embrace her with all your might? You can't, can you? She would crumble in your arms. You have to contain yourself, inhibit yourself. That needn't be. You can embrace me as hard as you want, and I'll not break. Wherever you choose to go, I can follow. I can stand at your side, and you need not fear. We could have anything we wanted. We could have it all as king and queen, or we could content ourselves with nothing, just you and me in a firelit hearth in a modest cabin. You loved me once. Who's to say you can't love me again? Lily suddenly changed shape. Now she looked like Gwendolyn, scarred cheek and all. I could be her, if you like. I can be anyone I choose. I can be anyone you want me to be. Indulge your whims, your deepest unspoken fantasies, and I can be those things just for you. Another lie, Lily. Another fabrication. It's not a lie. What I feel is not a lie. All the lies I told you were put in my mouth by the sisters. That was their doing, not mine. She resumed her usual Lily guise and composed herself. She changed her approach. Look, Belle, look what I have. I have this. She produced a small handbag and dug through it. She pulled out a small black velvet bag and placed it on the table. What is that? Stenstrom asked. Lily was excited and spoke like a child for a moment. This is what the sisters stole from you that day in their temple. It's your love for me, contained in the magic metal slivers you once wore in the folds of your mask. See? I found them discarded on the floor like so much refuse, and I kept them with me all this time. She picked the bag up and held it out. These are your feelings, Belle. No magic. No tricks. Take these pieces that I've protected and feel for me what you once did. It can be all yours again. Take it. Stenstrom set his weapons down and looked at the bag in Lily's hand. His feelings, his love for Lily, and it had been profound until the sisters pulled it from him. Now he loved Gwendolyn. He struggled, full of indecision. The door to the conference room opened. Gwendolyn came in, still holding her bags from her return trip. Ah, Belle, there you are. Tara said you were... She saw Lily sitting at the end of the table holding the black velvet bag. She dropped her purchases and drew her fedula. Lily's face distorted in rage. You! Get out! Gwen focused on the bag Lily held. She flashed her weapon and bisected the bag, destroying the fragile metal pieces within. They crumbled. Lily stared at the destroyed pieces for a moment. She moaned and then screamed a primal roar of fury. She pointed at Gwendolyn. A torrent of sand shot out and punched Gwendolyn in the chest, driving her back into the bulkhead. "Belle!" she cried, dropping her fedula, the sand scouring away her flesh. Stenstrom snatched up his ince and fired 2 shots, hitting Lily in the neck. She exploded in rage, a windstorm of sand engulfing the room. He couldn't see much, just a cloud of sand with a central vortex twisting in the center. His ears filled with the sound of Lily's scream, growing with each passing moment. The windows to the conference room, each several inches thick to withstand the rigors of space, burst outwards and the room rapidly decompressed. He was pulled out into space, and so was Gwendolyn, or what was left of her. Her body was half stripped to the skeleton. She spiraled away in a random direction. He fell in the silent cosmic breeze, his lungs crying out for air, but not needing it for survival. The sisters' power kept him whole, even in the airless, deep freeze of space. He watched the graceful form of the Seeker, veteran of countless battles and sturdy in the extreme, burst outward in a cloud of boiling sand, destroyed by Lily in a matter of moments. Its remains pelted him as he entered Cana's atmosphere. The tormenting cloud of the creature that was Lily came down around him as fire licked off his plummeting body. "Belle!" entered his brain, and he felt his body impervious to the rigors of space and the trials of re-entry stripping away. Lily's power was too much, even for the It-Man. He fell to Cana, and a cloud of anger and torment fell with him, Lily growing and growing until the entire ball of Cana below was stripped bare and lifeless. He fell and fell. And with that, we conclude the prologue of the Shadow Tech Goddess, Part 1. Pretty odd beginning to the story. Seems like that would be a wrap. Roll credits, book over. The protagonist is dead, his girlfriend dead. The apparent antagonist, Lily, victorious, his ship destroyed, and the entire planet of Cana destroyed with him. Doesn't seem like we've got much to do. This has been Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. I'm kidding, of course. We've got 335 pages of this book to go through. We're only up to page 8. So what we're going to find is that this book, the Shadow Tech Goddess series, deals with different universes and different concepts of universal similarity. Basically, what it is there are an infinite number of universes, and depending on the frequency at which your molecules vibrate at an atomic level, whatever that frequency is a universe into itself. You change the frequency and you're in a different universe. And what happens in one universe is not what happens in the other, and your atomic material is actually the same. There's a lot of similarity, as you know, from universe 1 to universe 2, and the farther you get away, the less similar things become, and we see that in later books as things get really weird as you get farther away. But this book deals with alternate universes, alternate planes of reality, and so in this particular universe, whichever one it happens to be, our hero dies. Everybody dies. We see Lily. What is Lily? Obviously, she's some sort of arcane creature. Lily is a sand nargle, she's basically a construct, kind of like Frankenstein. She was created by the sisters. As the sisters identified Paymaster Stenstrom as a person who is genetically capable of wielding their power. Yeah, usually they determine who these people are, and they're called by a number of different names. I tend to call them the It-Man. You know, there's also the Lone Rider, the Lonely Star. There's a lot of different names for this type of person. I call it the It Man just for brevity. And usually they can tell the coming of these It Men through genealogies, through genetics. They can predict, an It Man will be born here. And whenever that happens, they claim this person and they use them for their own devices. Paymaster Stenstrom was an artificially created It Man. It is a long story. See the Belmont saga for how he was artificially created, but his mother was taking a bunch of herbal things to prevent the coming of a male child because she had a running dispute with his father, Stenstrom the Older. Stenstrom the Older needed a son to hand the family assets off to, as the League on the surface appears to be a very male-dominated society, but it's really actually run by women, but women allow the men to think they're in charge. Everything is passed down from the men. He's got 29 sisters, but with no man, they would have all lose their stuff. They needed a male heir for the House of Belmont, South Tyrol, and his father, Stenstrom the Older, fed up with his wife taking herbal medicines to keep from having a male child, took what's called the God sperm potion on Baz to ensure the birth of a male child. And these two tinctures clashed in her womb, and he was born later on, and he was artificially enhanced with It Man abilities. And so the sisters can fill him up with their power, which is why he could survive in space and so forth. It's the sister's power within him that does that. Lily was created by the sisters to guide him and to teach him and protect him and provide him with carnal delights and love and guide him in the direction they wanted him to go. A sand nargle is, supposed to be a semi-intelligent creature. It can be easily programmed to do whatever their creator's bidding is. In this case, to be the guardian of this guy, Paymaster Stenstrom, to be his teacher and his lover. And then once her I can't say that word. Once her purposefulness is over, they kind of deactivate her, turn her off, and discard her. But Lily was tainted with a recipe known as the black sand, which this is a long story. I don't want to go on forever. Read the Belmont saga for more, but Paymaster Stenstrom's mother had an enemy who was Lady Vendra of Cone. Apparently, long before he was born, his mother stole his father from Lady Vendra of Cone, and she never got over it and became the mortal enemy of his mother. But she wouldn't strike out at her directly. She struck out at the people she loved, mostly her children. And once he showed up, she really directed her wrath at him. Tried to kill him several times. They failed. She tried to kidnap him a few times, which failed. And then she discovered this construct that the sisters had created, who in the guise of a seemingly mundane woman, Lillian of Gamboa, who was the cover they created for her was she was an artist and a woman of great intellect, but very mundane, nothing arcane about her, when in fact she was totally arcane. And she in her research discovered you could take these sand nargles and you could bend them to your will by introducing this substance known as the black sand. And you can take this black sand and infuse it with your emotions. And she filled it up full of rage and hate, hoping that Lily would turn on Paymaster Stenstrom and totally destroy him. As we see in the various books, Lily in her secondary form, her sand nargle form, looks like a giant tornado of sand and is incredibly powerful. But the opposite happened. Lily became ambitious and defiant of the sisters who had programmed her for a specific task, and she rejected everything the sisters had tried to build into her, except the one thing that was most ingrained into her was, to love Paymaster Stenstrom. It was artificially imposed upon her, but she made a choice once the black sand was introduced and she became more of an autonomous person. She made the choice to keep that because it provided her with purpose, and she loved the guy, so she kept that. And the sisters, when he discovered that Lily was just a woman of sand, the sisters, through arcane means, stripped him of his feelings for her. They had been together for about 5 years, and she had earned his love, and he loved Lily, and he proposed to her. But then the sisters, through arcane methods, pulled all his feelings of love for her out and put them in these little metal shards. They're called hermelanes, like magic pieces of metal, and just discarded them. Like, okay, your love is now gone. You can move on. And he did move on. He moved on to Lady Gwendolyn, who was initially his opponent in the Belmont saga, but eventually became his love interest, and that was that. But Lily refused to be deactivated. She, now fully autonomous and with a will of her own, she recovered these hermelanes and kept them in a locket that she had made. She had painted his picture in it and kept these little pieces of metal safe with her, and hoped to, if he touched the pieces of metal again, his feelings of love would return. But as we see here, that didn't happen. Gwendolyn shows up with her fedula, which is like a rapier, and destroyed them, and Lily then destroyed her and then blew up his ship. So that was a pretty bad way to go. But obviously, that was in a different universe. We continue on with the second part of the prologue next week, which is part 2, known as St. Mary's Axe, and that's pretty short, so I'll probably consolidate that with the next one, which is part 3, which is known as Melazar. If you listened to or read Cat, the six-turn cat, Melazar's name should be familiar. In these Shadowtech Goddess books, the same characters keep popping up over and over again in different universes, and their roles are different. We see Melazar in Cat hanging out in the city of Ain, and this one totally different, so we'll see what Melazar has to offer. But that's next week. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. It's good to be back, and I hope you enjoyed this reading of the Shadowtech Goddess as we dive into the book. It really is it's a cool story, if I say so myself. I wrote it, but it is pretty cool, and it's got a lot of fascinating components to it, and a lot of good action, and a lot of travel to faraway places, stuff that I just love, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. Let's get through the prologue and into the main body of this book next week. Until then, hang loose, stay safe, wash hands, don't get the coof, no coof, and let's be real. Until then, peace.